For centuries, societies across the world have discussed the role, dignity, and rights of women. Every civilization developed its own ideas about family, marriage, property, and social responsibilities. When Islam emerged in 7th century Arabia, it appeared within a specific historical context. It did not emerge in an empty world. It entered a society shaped by tribal customs, economic realities, and traditions that had existed for generations. To understand the significance of Islamic teachings about women, we must first ask, what principles did the Quran introduce? What changes did the teachings of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, bring to the lives of women? And how did these ideas compare with the societies that existed around them? Before discussing individual rights, we must begin with the foundation of Islamic teachings, the value and dignity of every human being. The Quran presents men and women as sharing the same human origin. O mankind, fear your Lord, who created you from a single soul and created from it its mate. The Quran also emphasizes that moral responsibility and reward are not based on gender. Indeed, the Muslim men and Muslim women, the believing men and believing women, Allah has prepared for them forgiveness and a great reward. The principle established here is that a person's value before God is based on faith and actions, not whether they are male or female. However, dignity and spiritual equality are only the foundation. The next question is, how were these principles translated into practical rights? The first major reform we will examine is one of the most fundamental, the right to life and the dignity of daughters. After understanding the world before Islam, we now turn to the reforms introduced by the Quran and the teachings of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. One of the earliest and most fundamental issues addressed by Islam was the value of human life and the dignity of daughters. In 7th century Arabia, some communities held negative attitudes toward the birth of girls. The Quran describes this attitude. When one of them is given news of the birth of a female, his face becomes dark and he suppresses grief. The Quran continues, he hides himself from the people because of the bad news he has received. Should he keep it with humiliation or bury it in the ground? These verses do not describe every Arabian family, but they reveal that such attitudes existed among some people and were considered serious enough to be directly condemned. The Quran challenged the idea that the value of a child depended on gender. A daughter was not a source of shame. She was not a burden. She was a human being with dignity and value before God. The Quran states, and when the girl who was buried alive is asked, for what sin was she killed? This verse presents a powerful moral argument. The innocent child is not the one who should be questioned. Instead, accountability belongs to those who harmed her. Islam also addressed the broader issue of children being harmed because of economic fears. The Quran states, do not kill your children for fear of poverty. We provide for them and for you. The message was that economic hardship could not justify taking the life of a child. Children were viewed as a trust and responsibility. The Islamic reform was not limited only to preventing harm. It also changed the social perception of daughters. Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, repeatedly emphasized kindness toward daughters. A well-known hadith states, whoever cares for 2 girls until they reach maturity, he and I will come on the day of resurrection like this. And he interlaced his fingers for explaining the point of nearness between him and that person. The Prophet, peace be upon him, also showed affection and respect toward his daughters in his own life. His daughter Fatima, may Allah be pleased with her, was honored and respected among the early Muslim community. The importance of this reform becomes clearer when viewed in its historical context. Many ancient societies struggled with questions about the value of children, especially during poverty, war, and social hardship. The significance of Islam's teaching was that it established the protection and dignity of children as a religious obligation. The value of a child was not determined by gender, wealth, family status, or social usefulness. Although the Quran addressed this issue in 7th century Arabia, the broader challenge of valuing boys over girls has not completely disappeared from human societies. Even in the modern world, some societies continue to experience forms of gender discrimination against female children, including sex-selective practices and neglect of girls. International organizations have documented that millions of girls have been affected by sex-selective practices, particularly in regions where strong cultural preferences for sons exist. These modern issues are different from the specific practice of burying newborn girls described in historical sources, but they share a common underlying problem: the belief that the value of a child depends on whether they are male or female. The significance of the Qur'anic message was that it challenged the idea that a person's value is determined by gender and established the dignity of daughters as a religious principle. The first reform we examine is therefore not simply a legal rule. It is a change in the way society viewed human life. From this foundation, we can now examine the practical rights that followed: marriage, property, inheritance, education, and legal protection. After establishing the dignity and value of daughters, the next important question is, what role did women have in one of the most important decisions of their lives: marriage? Marriage has existed in every human society, but the way marriages were arranged and the rights of individuals within marriage have differed greatly across cultures and historical periods. In many ancient societies, marriage was not only a personal relationship, it was also a connection between families. Marriage could create alliances, strengthen social relationships, and protect economic interests. Because of this, families often played a major role in choosing marriage partners. As discussed earlier, pre-Islamic Arabia was a tribal society where family relationships were extremely important. Marriage could strengthen connections between clans and families. The amount of influence a woman had over marriage decisions likely varied depending on her family, wealth, and social position. Some women may have had more influence, especially those from powerful families. However, there was no universal legal framework that clearly established a woman's consent as a required condition for marriage across Arabian communities. With the emergence of Islam, marriage was placed within a new moral and legal framework. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, emphasized that women could not simply be forced into marriages without their approval. A famous narration states, "A woman without a husband, or divorced, or a widow, must not be married until she is consulted, and a virgin must not be married until her permission is sought." They asked the Prophet of Allah, peace be upon him, how her, virgins, consent can be solicited. He, the Holy Prophet, said that she keeps silence. Another narration reports that a woman came to the Prophet, peace be upon him, complaining that her father had married her against her will, and the Prophet, peace be upon him, gave her the choice regarding the marriage. These narrations demonstrate an important principle. Marriage requires the acceptance of the woman involved. The importance of this reform was not only about marriage itself. It recognized women as individuals whose agreement mattered. A woman was not simply a connection between families. She was a person with her own will and rights. This principle established that marriage should be based on responsibility and agreement rather than only family interests. The idea of marriage consent is now considered a fundamental principle in many modern legal systems. However, forced marriage remains a problem in different parts of the world today. International organizations continue to identify forced marriage as a violation of human rights. This shows that the question of genuine consent in marriage is not only a historical issue. It remains a continuing global challenge. Islam abolished this custom through the following verse of the Qur'an. "O you who believe, it is not lawful for you to inherit women by compulsion." The Islamic approach to marriage introduced a principle that placed the woman's approval at the center of the marriage contract. While historical societies differed in their customs and practices, Islamic teachings established that marriage should not be imposed without consent. From this foundation, we can now examine another major area of women's rights: the right to own property and control personal wealth. After discussing the importance of consent in marriage, we now examine another important question. Could a woman own wealth and control her own property? Economic independence is closely connected with personal dignity and security. Throughout history, different civilizations developed different approaches to women's financial rights. Before Islam, women's economic experiences varied depending on their family background, social status, and local customs. Some women possessed wealth and participated in economic activities. The example of Khadija bint Khuwaylid, may Allah be pleased with her, a respected merchant of Mecca before Islam, demonstrates that some women could achieve significant economic influence. However, The experiences of exceptional individuals do not necessarily represent a universal legal system protecting all women. Islam introduced a framework in which women were recognized as independent holders of wealth. The Quran states, "And do not wish for that by which Allah has made some of you exceed others. For men is a share of what they have earned, and for women is a share of what they have earned." This verse recognizes that both men and women can possess what they earn. Islamic teachings also established that a woman's wealth remained her own property. Her husband did not automatically own her wealth. Her earnings, gifts, and possessions belonged to her. One important example is the bridal gift. The Quran states that, "And give the women their bridal gifts graciously." This established that the marital gift belonged to the woman herself. It was not the property of her family and was not automatically transferred to her husband either. Today, the right of married women to own and control their own property is considered a fundamental legal principle in many countries. However, historically, many societies restricted married women's control over property. For example, in parts of Europe and North America, married women's property rights were expanded gradually through legal reforms during the 19th century. This shows that the question of women's economic independence has been a long historical development across different civilizations. Islamic teachings established the principle that women could own, control, and benefit from their own wealth. While some women before Islam possessed wealth and participated in economic life, Islam placed women's financial rights within a religious and legal framework. A woman's property belonged to her. Her wealth was not automatically controlled by her family or husband. The rights we have explored in this episode represent some of the foundational changes introduced by Islamic teachings regarding women. Islam challenged attitudes that viewed daughters as a source of shame, established the importance of a woman's consent in marriage, and recognized women as independent holders of wealth. However, these are only part of the wider discussion. The Quran and the teachings of Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, addressed many other aspects of women's lives, including inheritance, education, justice, family responsibilities, and social participation. In the next episode, we will continue exploring women's rights in Islam, inheritance, knowledge, justice, and the role of women in society. If you would like to explore these topics further, the academic references and primary sources used in this documentary are available in the video description below. If you found this documentary valuable, please like, share, and subscribe to support more research-based historical content. Thank you for watching.